Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome back to Hardboiled English Live. It is great to be streaming live again after a 1.5 hour, 1.5 hour? Bad teacher, don't trust anything I say. The show has been down for 1.5 months. It needed a little break to recalibrate, and also I needed some time to work on some other projects. We've got some exciting things happening soon. This show is a real treat for me. This is an opportunity for me to help language learners like yourselves all over the world, and I've really missed it. This show started during the pandemic. In fact, it started September 2020, and since that time we've been streaming every week, mostly Friday, but sometimes Thursdays. And I've been able to connect with learners all over the world in countries where I had never helped or taught students before, and it's been fantastic. But, you know, it takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of time and effort to produce this show, which I do on my own. Sometimes my wife helps me with the software, sometimes not, as is the case tonight. So sometimes we need to stop, set up some new equipment. I had to get some new lighting because some of the lighting I've been using last year broke. So anyways, here we are again for a whole new season of Hardboiled English Live. So thank you for joining us. To start the show, I'd like you all to say hello in the comment thread and tell me what country you're watching from. That's very interesting for me. So this is Hardboiled English Live. This is a show where I try my best to answer your questions about English, but oftentimes we help each other and we solve the mysteries of English together. So I'll be a little bit like your language detective. Maybe I'm not really a teacher, although I am a teacher. Maybe I'm more of a language detective. So I really enjoy figuring out what's happening in language. For those of you who don't know me, I am the host of the YouTube channel Hardboiled English. And on that channel, you can find my long-form series, English Weirdness. And on this series, students and I investigate some of the strange aspects of English grammar. Strange and confusing things. And this is a production that I made with my language students entirely. And I think we've done a pretty good job at incorporating drama, animations, graphics, and really in-depth analysis of some of these strange features of English language. Another project I'm very excited about, and it has taken a long time to put together because I'm trying to make the best online writing course I can. So, starting on this Sunday, May 1st, I'm going to be launching Teacher Paul's writing workshop. This is an online writing workshop where you can download or view recorded lessons. You get access to reference materials, quizzes, practice worksheets, and the whole idea is to improve your writing skill. And this will be good if you're just writing blogs, writing social media posts, if you're writing online magazine articles, if you're a journalist, if you're a student. This course will help you write better essays, better paragraphs. If you're a high school student, if you're a college student, doesn't matter. Writing starts with the foundations, and this course will introduce the foundations, the fundamental skills you need to master to produce great writing. It's also a good course if you're planning on taking a language test like IELTS, TOEFL, TOEIC, CELPIP. Now in this course, I do not teach test preparation tips, such as how long the exam will last or what kind of questions to expect. There are other great coaches and tutors that can help you with this. But my belief is, if you can write well, if you can write a good, well-developed paragraph, you can get through those writing tests, no problem, and get good grades on them. Okay, so those are a couple of the things I'm working on these days. And we've got a new segment to finish the show tonight. We'll get to that, so stay tuned all the way to the end, and I'll give you a new segment of language exploration. In the meantime, let's pop up some of our friends and see who's visiting. I want to say hello to Chris Derboven from Belgium. I want to say hi to Estrella Yepes. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. From Mexico. We have Wako from Japan with us. We have Bargain Betty 99. Bargain Betty 99 usually watches the show from the moon. Betty, are you still on the moon? I don't know. It's been a while since we did the show, so I'm not sure where you are. Hello from Belgium, teacher and language detective Paul. Thank you, Chris. It's great to be back with you all again. I've truly missed this show. Needed the time, yes, but great to have you with us. The last time we did the show, we had a great guest. His name is Franco the Tutor. He's a young English tutor in Peru. I'm going to have him on again soon, but he's really busy with his schedule lately, so he can't make it. Bargain Betty's still on the moon. Good. It's good to know some things are consistent. Who else do we have here? We have Wilson from Ecuador. Although Wilson has another name, which is Nancy. Very interesting. But Wilson has also been a guest on the show. He's a fantastic English teacher from South America as well. He's from Ecuador. Where, you may not know this, in Ecuador, the world's greatest chocolate is grown. The cocoa bean is grown. Ecuador produces the great chocolate. We have Maria Cristina, Chris from Brazil. Welcome, Chris. Great to see you with us again. If you're just joining us on the show, guys, please say hello in the comment box and tell us where you're from. Tell us what country you're watching from. Yep, Chris from Brazil. Welcome, welcome. We'll get to our first segment shortly, but I want to say hello to everyone and find out what country you're in. How's the weather where you are? Where I live, in Vancouver, on the west coast of Canada, the weather has turned, and now we're into our spring, officially, because the weather is warm and sunny. After a long autumn and winter of rain, now we get warm sunshine, and it's wonderful. It creates some challenges, though, because a lot of the homes where I live are not really designed to accommodate high temperatures, and the temperatures are rising. Last summer, we had a really strong heat wave, and most apartments and homes don't have air conditioning. So we'll see what happens this summer. If you're just joining us, please say hello in the comment thread and tell us what country you're from or where you're watching from. I'm on my own tonight. There are no guests. But starting next weekend, I believe, we have a good lineup of new and interesting guests and some old favorites who have been with us a couple of times over the 2 years we've been streaming. They'll be joining us. I like to have a guest every second week. So 1 week we just do board work, we answer questions, we do some language investigation, as I like to call it. And then the second week we have guests. Sometimes the guests can stay for a long time, so it's more like a podcast, a discussion. Sometimes they're only here shortly, briefly, that's okay. If you're just joining us, please say hello. What I'm going to do now, guys, is just want to check to make sure the feed is working. It seems like we are being seen on Facebook, no problem. Is anyone watching from YouTube? Oh, but Betty and Wako are. Okay, good. Now we're also streaming on LinkedIn. We're also streaming on Africa TV, Twitch, Twitter. Did I say LinkedIn? Yes, LinkedIn. Somewhat another platform we're also streaming on. Okay. We're streaming. It seems to be working. Let's get to it. Our first segment is usually a vocabulary practice segment. Last 2 years, we've been looking at words to use instead of good, words to use that are adjectives, and more recently, we worked on words to use instead of bad. Wilson's on another account. Okay, welcome, Wilson. Now I'm unconfused. Thank you. Great to see you. So guys, this season, spring season, we are going to do a vocabulary segment a little different. Last year we focused on adjectives. Recently in one of my classes, it came to my attention that learners struggle a lot, not necessarily with adjectives, sometimes adjective structures like adjective clauses, but one thing they really struggle with, so I'd like to focus on this season, are adverbs. And adverbs are a complex feature of English for a couple of reasons. One, adverbs can be single words like quickly, I ran quickly. They can also be phrases, for example, with time adverbs like, think of an example, yesterday afternoon, right? That's more than one word. Or they can be entire clauses with a subject and a verb of their own, but they're acting adverbally. So you can have an adverb clause like, when I arrived, comma, I ate dinner. So adverbs and adverbials can be very complex. So I'm going to focus on that this season, okay? First, I want to say hello. Joining us now, we have Chieko. Chieko, welcome. Great to have you with us. Nice to see you again. What country are you watching from, Chieko? Can you tell us in the comment thread? I can't remember what country you watch from. Regardless, it's great to have you with us. Okay, our first segment this season is something I'm going to call, if I can find it. Let's see what we're going to do this season. We are going to focus on words to use instead of goodly. Now, goodly is not really a word. There is a common belief, actually also among native speakers sometimes, that to make an adverb, you just put ly on the ending. Now, it is true that a lot of adverbs are ly, like quickly, but not all of them are ly. And if you learned that only, your adverbial skill is limited. So the title of this segment is called Words to Use Instead of Goodly. It's a bit of a joke because I heard Donald Trump once use the word goodly. Now, good is an adjective. Good is not an adverb. So it should not describe a verb. Remember, adverbs modify or describe verbs. They tell us information. So before we get to the example, to start the year, I'd like a little breakdown about adverbs. Here we have, this is a basic idea of what an adverb is and does. Subject and a verb. I ran. Now that's a clause. It's a complete idea. You can just stop there. You could put a period. But it doesn't tell us a lot. It is a complete idea, but it doesn't tell us a lot of information. Sometimes we have questions about that action. For example, when? When did the action happen? Right? We might wonder where. We might wonder how, in what way. We might even ask why. Right? Because it's an action, and we know that in the world actions happen in different ways. So whatever information you want to know about an action, the answer is an adverb. So for example, I ran when? Yesterday. That's a time adverb. It tells us when the action happened. It doesn't tell us any information about the subject. It's not an adjective, right? It's telling us information about the verb. Therefore, it's an adverb. Where? In the park. Now, you could say in the park is a prepositional phrase, and it is, because it has a preposition and a noun. But it's also telling us where an action happened. So it's acting as an adverb to modify ran. Now this is where a lot of adverbs live. How? In what way? I ran quickly, as I said earlier. I ran, well, let's change this to run, just to give us more options. I run frequently. I run slowly, right? And by the way, guys, today's final segment, English Confidential, a new segment, is going to explore more about adverbs because it's a common problem, especially for native speakers. And if you guys are learning from native speakers who are making such errors, you might pick up some bad habits, and we want to avoid that. So stay tuned to the end of the show. There'll be a short segment called English Confidential based on another series. And then there's why. And why is where you often see an adverbial phrase or clause. For example, I run because I want to be healthy. Right? I want to be healthy. So this is an adverb of cause or adverb of reason. Why? Why I run. So that's how adverbs work. Today, let's look at the adverb of the day. Seldom. Now, seldom is an adverb which means, as it says right here, not often or almost never. Okay? So it's telling us about time, right? So it's going to fit into this kind of category here. It's going to be an adverb of time, or we could also say adverb of frequency. How often something happens. So, it falls in the category of adverb of time, but what kind of time? Frequency of time. I run. I'll give you an example. I run now this is an adverb that's going to go here before the verb. Okay? I seldom run. So I want you to always put it in front of the verb. Okay? Adverbs of manner, like quickly or occasionally, can go over here. In fact, that's what's cool about adverbs is they can occupy a whole bunch of positions. Adverbs of time can go in the front or the back of a sentence. So you can have a sentence with a whole series of adverbs being used in different positions. And in fact, a lot of sentences do. And they may be confusing for a learner because there's so many of them in different places in the sentence. So adverbs are important to work on. So what I'd like you guys to do is think of some examples and write a sentence in the caption box. Write a sentence in the caption box using this adverb and a verb of your choice. So it could be anything. I'll put a couple more examples here, like I seldom run. Let's see. I seldom eat pizza. Now, some of you followers of the show may know already that I like pizza. In fact, I love pizza. But the truth is, I seldom eat it. It's delicious, but it's not necessarily good for my health because when I eat it, I tend to eat a lot. So I seldom eat pizza. I also seldom travel. Okay? I seldom travel. Why? Well, we've had restrictions based on the pandemic, and that has minimized or reduced the amount of travel we can do. And that's okay. We're getting through that. Okay, let's see your examples. Try a simple example first. Subject, verb, a subject, seldom adverb, and then your verb. Let's see what you can come up with, okay? In the meantime, I'll say hello to Sue Sonica Deplan. Hello, greetings from La Paz, Baja California, Sur, Mexico. Great, welcome to the show. I think we've never had you with us. Great to have you with us. Huh. Facebook user. Now, Facebook user, we don't see your name, and that is because you're probably watching from a Facebook group. So what I'd recommend is go to my profile page or my Teacher Paul page or YouTube, and there we can see your name. But if you watch the show from the Facebook groups, we can't actually see your name. So welcome to the show, whomever you are. Seldom equals rarely. Yes, but look at this. almost never. That little piece of meaning is important, right? Rarely might mean you do it like once a year, right? But you do it. Almost never means, you probably don't do it every year, maybe every 5 years. Almost never. Rarely is a little bit more frequent, I would say, but very similar. Bargain Betty says, what about panzerato? Yeah, I seldom eat panzerato. I love panzerato. But where I live in Vancouver, nobody sells panzerato. In Toronto, Canada, where I grew up, that region, there's a lot of pizza places that sell panzerato. For those of you who don't know what a panzerato is, it's like pizza dough with all the pizza on it, but closed. So it's like I don't know, it's like a package of pizza goodness inside, and then it's deep fried. It's great. It's pizza dough, sauce, cheese, all the toppings, but closed like a giant dumpling. It's incredible. It's one of my favorite things. But nowhere in Vancouver can I buy it. So I seldom eat panzerato. Very true. Okay, who else is joining us? We have Ratna from Indonesia. Wow, great to have you with us. Thank you for joining. Okay, Chris has a good example here. I seldom come too late to work. I seldom come. So there's the verb. Seldom is the adverb. Come is the verb. And then the rest is modification words. I seldom come too late to work. Very good. Wilson says, I seldom go to the movies. Right? I seldom go. Go is the verb. Seldom is the adverb. So Wilson's a busy man. He's got a family. He's got a busy job. And there have been some restrictions about movie theater, so we can say, Wilson seldom goes to the movies. Good, 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 good. Chris says, my family seldom eats seafood. My family seldom eats seafood. Seldom eats, right? I think Chris is in Brazil where they have a lot of famous barbecue meat. So maybe that's why. Or maybe just don't like seafood. That's fine. Also want to welcome Learn with Tirath. Tirath, great to see you again. Hopefully you're well. And for those of you who don't know, Tirath is a longtime viewer, another fellow teacher, and Tirath is watching from Nepal. So just to give you an idea of who's watching and from where, we've got people from all over the world watching the show. I love that. Bringing us all together. This is amazing. Great, Facebook user. What I'd like you to do, Facebook user, is please in the comment thread, tell me your name and tell me what country you're watching from. Because I don't know who you are. All I see is Facebook user. And again, the reason for that is you're watching on a Facebook group, which is fine. But when you watch in a group, I can't see your name. For some reason, Facebook does that. So if you want, jump over to my profile, which is where am I here? My profile is at Hardboiled English, or just look for Paul Duke on Facebook and you'll see me. Facebook user says, I seldom sleep early. Good. I seldom sleep early. Sounds like you stay awake very late. Maybe watching shows, maybe playing video games, maybe studying because you're a good student. Tirath has an example. He says, we seldom eat meat in the morning. We seldom eat meat in the morning. So seldom eat meat in the morning. Good. Chris says, I seldom become bored. That's a great sentence. I seldom become bored. You'll notice the become has in the front of it the verb be. Become is a kind of be verb, which is different than an action. But the word become means your existence or your condition has changed. It's still a be verb, so it works the same way as a be verb, but it implies change. I am a teacher, right? But in the past, I wasn't. I became a teacher. I changed what I was. Great sentence, Chris. But it shows us that you can use the adverb seldom with a be verb. Okay, any other examples, guys? Let's get you up on screen. Again, Facebook user, please tell me what your name is and what country you're watching from. I'm really happy that you've joined us, but I don't know your name. Okay, Wilson is working on YouTube. Great, thank you. Great. So we're using the adverb seldom. Okay, trying to practice using seldom with a verb, such as I seldom eat pizza. Oh, can't see that. Get the chat overlay. I seldom eat pizza. I seldom travel. I seldom run. So adverb seldom and then the verb. Okay. Give it a try. Give me a sentence in the comment thread if you haven't already. Here's an example. We'll put up Mr. Tirath's. We seldom eat meat in the morning. I seldom become bored. Actually, I know that feeling, Chris. Sometimes I hear students say, oh, I'm bored. I don't remember the last time I was bored. In fact, quite the opposite feeling. I feel like 24 hours in one day is not enough. There's too many things to do. I don't know what bored feels like. I don't know what that feels like. I'm always busy. I seldom drink beer. Okay, Wilson, I seldom drink beer. I can't say I seldom drink beer because I occasionally drink beer. Sometimes on a weekend I drink beer. But seldom has this idea of almost never. For me, I can't say I seldom eat beer. I can say I occasionally drink beer. Did I say eat beer? Guys, if I say something funny, it's because I forgot how to speak. It's been a while since I streamed this show, and I feel like I forgot how to speak. So please forgive me if I sound like an idiot. And I'm also trying to work the system here, so we'll keep up with that. Okay, let's clear the board and finish up that segment. I saw a question here. So Estrella says, hopefully I'm saying your name right, Estrella or Estrella, Estrella. Forgive me, my Spanish is terrible. I only know a few words and phrases. But your question is, when is the less suffix used? Now, I'm not entirely sure I know what you're saying, what you're asking me. Do you mean the word less? How do we use the word less? I can answer that question. Oh, Ratna says, I seldom cook. Good. Mutana Fadel says, is the term seldom new, invented, or is it old? I don't know how old it is, but it's certainly been around for a long time. So it's not a new trendy word. It's an adverb that means almost never. Okay? If you haven't heard it, that's fine. That's what this show is for. When you learn something new, it sounds strange because you haven't heard it before. So if that's the case, Mutana, you've just learned a new word. So practice using it. A lot of times students and learners ask me, Teacher Paul, is that word popular? Well, who cares? It doesn't matter if a word is popular. Words don't exist to be popular. Words exist to be useful. If that word is useful for you, if it expresses something specific and precise, then use it. Okay? Someone asked earlier, is seldom like rarely? Seldom is like rarely, but it's not rarely. They have a slightly different meaning. All words do. Okay? I say this all the time. Synonyms, it's a bit of a lie. Maybe someone taught you synonym are two words that mean the same thing. Two words never mean the same thing. There's always a difference. If they meant the same thing, one of them would have been vanished years ago. Nobody would use it anymore. We have two words or three. They have slightly different meanings. That's why we have them, because they express something slightly different. Okay? So seldom expresses a reality about life. And that reality is slightly different than the reality of rarely. Okay? Let me just remind you. Seldom means not often, right? But almost never. So rarely means not often, but sometimes, right? Rarely means, let's say I eat pizza, let's say once a month. That's more like rarely, because you think about it, you eat 2 or 3 times a day over a month. Pizza once is kind of rarely. But if you eat pizza once a year or once every 10 years, that's seldom. Okay, that is seldom. Or the example of panzerato. I seldom eat panzerato. I love panzerato, but I cannot buy it in my neighborhood. So I seldom eat it. Maybe once every 5 years when I visit a city that does sell it. Okay, so I seldom eat panzerato. So in answer to your question, is the term new, invented, or old? I would say it's old. It's certainly been around since I was a child, which is a long time. It's an old word. Let's leave it at that. But does that matter? What's important here? What's important is, what is the meaning? How do I use it? Go out and use it. Use it for the precise meaning, right? I seldom eat panzerato. That is the only word that really expresses that. If I say I rarely eat panzerato, that's a different meaning. If I say I occasionally eat panzerato, that's a different meaning and it's not accurate, right? Occasionally for me, eating a certain dish is like once every 2 weeks or once a month. After that, it's not occasionally, right? So every word has a specific meaning. That's why it's important to understand the meanings so that you can use them to express your reality. Okay? Mutana says, you're very great. Thank you. Really, I finally had a precious live show with an excellent... Mutana, join us every Friday. We've been doing this for 2 years now. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, we're all over the place. Sometimes we have guests. Maybe you want to be a guest. No problem. Thank you for joining the show. Okay, we had a question about less. I'm going to assume that you want to understand how to use the word less. Let me just find it. Well, I can't find it. Who asked that question? Estrella? Here we go. When is the less suffix used? Okay, I'm going to assume you mean the word less. Less actually is not a suffix. Okay? Suffix is like the ending of a sentence. that changes the meaning of a word, like ly, right? We had the word occasion. I just said it. Occasion is a noun, but if we add ly, becomes an adverb. Okay, that is a suffix. A little piece, not a word, a little piece of alphabet at the end of a word. And it changes, usually it changes the form from noun to adverb or adverb to adjective and so on, or verb. For example, another example would be passion. Passion is a noun, okay? But if we put the suffix ate, passionate, becomes an adjective, okay? So that's a suffix. What you're asking about, I think, is the word less. And less is really a kind of adjective because it tells us about a noun. What kind of noun? An uncountable noun, like water, right? I have water here, okay? And often it's used as a comparative. She has less water than me. Okay? She has less water. Less water. Water is the noun, right? And we want to be specific. We want more information about that noun. So we use an adjective like less. Okay? We can also use another one like more. More. She has more water than me. So more and less are opposites. And they work with nouns. And they work with uncountable nouns. Oops. Such as water, coffee, rice, information. What's another one? Stuff. Staff. Stuff means just various objects, like stuff in your backpack. Staff means members of a company or a job, a workplace. Uncountable nouns also include things like well, some nouns have an uncountable meaning and a countable meaning. So if you're talking about the material of skin, you can do that. But if you're talking about the skin on a drum, well, that can be countable because there can be different skins on a drum. So that's how you use less, usually to compare things. Okay, to compare less or more of one thing to another. But you compare the uncountable nouns. If you have a countable noun like pen, z, right, you use the same meaning, but for countable nouns would be fewer. Fewer pens. She has fewer pens than me, or fewer pens than I do, right? That's a comparative. Hopefully that answers your question. Arkady has joined us on LinkedIn. Great. Welcome to the show, Arkady. What country are you watching from? So, are your lessons for beginners, intermediate, or advanced? To be honest with you, I would say intermediate or advanced, or even some native speakers or teachers watch the show. And the reason is I tend to talk quickly. I tend to speak quickly. I tend to examine examples. My style of teaching is what we call inductive. This is a fancy word teachers use. Inductive means I like to start with a real life example, right? And then analyze the parts so we can understand the grammar that's happening, the structure that's happening, right? The opposite of that is deductive, where a teacher presents the grammar structure first, like subject, verb, noun, and then gives you an example. That's the other direction. And deductive giving the structure first, then an example, is better for beginners. My style, I think, is suited better for intermediate or advanced students. And in my experience professionally, I've usually worked with advanced students, especially those pre-university students or even university students. I've even worked with university professors to help them write better. So depending on where you are, sounds like you might be an advanced student, so this show is ideal for you. But what I like to do with this show is have you guys give me examples that we can analyze. Because I'm kind of forgetful, you know? So sometimes on the spot, it's difficult for me to come up with an example. It's better if you have an example. Wilson says, like homeless. I'm not sure I understand, Wilson. Did I miss something? Let's see what we have here. So Chris is asking, isn't it the difference between useful and useless? Yeah, these are suffixes. Maybe this is what Estrella means. Not using it as a comparative. So these are great examples. Thank you, Chris. So if we compare them, so useful is an adjective. Useless is also an adjective. But, so the grammar form, the parts of speech are the same, but the meanings are different. And the connotations are different. Typically, useful has a positive meaning. These pens are useful. Maybe you just noticed I wiped my board with this chemical. Expo Whiteboard Care. And right away, I can write on the board with these pens. That's good because I don't want to waste time while we stream live. So these pens and that chemical are useful. They help me. These are tools that help me a lot with this show. They're useful. Useless, well, what is useless for my show? Let me think. Well, sometimes things I think are useless turn into useful for this show. So let's not use that example. Well, here's a hammer. Now, generally, a hammer is a useful tool, right? You can bang nails and make tables and chairs and whatever, carpentry. However, this one's broken. So it doesn't hammer nails very well. In fact, even if I try to hammer my hand, it's going to break. So this is useless. I think that's what you meant, Estrella, by the suffix useless. Yes, it turns this into a negative meaning. It means, it basically makes it negative by saying it has no use. It's without use. This one is full of use. That's the idea. That's the meaning that they express, right? Useless means there's no use at all. Hopefully that explains the difference. And by the way, that's not all that common as a suffix, right? It's really not. Useless, pointless, meaningless. There's a few words, for sure, but not a lot, I would say. This is interesting. We've talked about this before on the show, Mutana, and it's a great point because when we think about language, and I'll say this 100 times when I do this show, we're talking about form, we're talking about meaning, but we're also talking about use. Form is the grammar, meaning is the idea behind it, but use is how it's used in the real world, how we use it in a sentence, how we use it to communicate an idea, how we use it conventionally. Conventionally means socially acceptable ways, right? And these change over time as culture changes. All cultures change. Cultures that use English also change. So sometimes words are used in different ways. Let me give you an example of what you're talking about here. Water can be countable. Not really. Grammatically, water is not countable. Meaning-wise, it's not countable. However, conventional use, you hear people say it. You'll hear people say like, I will buy 2 waters, right? And it looks like a countable noun. This is kind of an informal use, and I'll tell you what happens. If you go to the store where they sell water and soda and Coca-Cola and all that stuff, we know that water, because it's a liquid material, has to be in a container. It's the only way to buy it. It always comes in a bottle. So if you go to the store and behind the counter someone has bottles of water, you could say, oh, I would like to buy 2 bottles of water, please. You could say that, but it's only available in bottles, so it's obvious. And when things are obvious, we tend to drop them to make things faster. So often when people speak, they'll say, I'll have 2 waters. And the staff who works at the store is not confused. Why? The water only comes in bottles. You don't need to say bottle. It's obviously in a bottle. I'll give you another example. Coffee is uncountable. You go to the Starbucks or the cafe and you say, I'd like 2 coffees, please. Well, wait a minute. Coffee is uncountable, teacher. What's going on here? Well, we know that coffee is sold in a cup. It's not sold in a cardboard box. It's not sold in a bag. Well, the beans are. If you go to a cafe, there is no confusion about what container it comes in. So you could say, I'll have 2 cups of coffee. That's the full meaning. That's the fully accurate grammar, right? And cups is countable, right? And plural. So 2 cups. But of course, the person at the cafe knows that it's going to come in a cup. There's no alternative. There's only one way to give you the coffee, in a cup. So, conventionally, out there in the world, socially, people often say, I'll have 2 or 3 or 5 coffees. That doesn't make the word countable. It really doesn't. It's the way we use it. The word is still uncountable. The meaning is still uncountable, and you should know that. Okay? But you have permission in society to say that if it is clear to the other person. Okay? If I go to a farm, if I go to a coffee farm in Colombia or Brazil, and I ask the farmer, can I have 2 coffees? The farmer might give me 2 beans, right? Because he doesn't sell drinks of coffee in a cup. He sells beans that he grows. So beans are countable. He might give you 2 beans. So he doesn't know what you're talking about. So you do need to understand countable and uncountable nouns. That's an essential feature of English. It's good to understand it. But your comment is excellent because you do hear people say that. If, in that context, it is obvious that the only way the water or the coffee is coming is in a cup, something that's obvious, then you don't need to say the countable cup. Okay, Arkady says, ESL is not a science, therefore it should not be studied or explained. ESL is a skill and should be trained or practiced by writing symbols in which we think to new English words directly. Can you elaborate on this statement? I think it's crap. I think it's not true. I think it's not accurate. I think it's not helpful. I'll tell you why. Yes, ESL is not a science, but language acquisition is a science. It is studied. It is researched. It is put through studies. There's a lot of research done with language acquisition. It's not a science per se. It's not dealing with hard science like chemistry or astrophysics. But academically, it is treated the same way sciences are, with studies, with experiments, with tests, to determine what works for language acquisition and what doesn't. Secondarily, saying that it should not be studied is foolish. Okay? Saying that it shouldn't be explained is foolish. And I'll tell you why. There's a lot of people who want to criticize ESL education, and we should always try to make it better. But the people that criticize it will often say really generalized statements like, oh, traditional ESL education doesn't work. Well, if that's true, let's test it. If that's true, that means for hundreds of years, since people have been learning second languages at schools, none of them acquired a second language. None of them developed skill in the second language. Nobody, because ESL education doesn't work. Is that true? Clearly not. Many people have developed a second language. And how did they do it? Through studying, through explanation. But practice is also necessary. Language is a skill. You're right about that. It should be practiced, right? Absolutely. But it should also be explained. When someone has a question, because they're using language inaccurately, should I not answer the question? Should I not explain how to do it better? Right? So I don't agree with all of this statement. I think a lot of it's crap. I think a lot of people want to say things like that shouldn't be studied or shouldn't be explained. But there's no research saying that studying or explaining a language hurts you or doesn't lead to language acquisition. In fact, the opposite is true. There's a lot of research showing that a lot of ESL techniques do work for language acquisition. So I don't believe that. Let's find a... Old phones are useless nowadays. That's a good sentence. But what happens when you have no Wi-Fi or no internet and all you have is a good old-fashioned phone? Then it's useful. Okay, how's our time looking? Thoughts are uncountable. Actually, no, thought can be countable. Why? Because you can have definitely distinct separate thoughts. You can distinguish them. Mutana, we've had a really good explanation about uncountable and countable nouns in a previous show. What I'd like to do is get you the link to that show. So connect with me on Facebook. Look for Paul Duke at Hardboiled English. And I'll get you the link to that episode, which explains it really well, I think. I'm referring to the suffix less adding to the word home. Is less a suffix in the case of homeless? Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question, Wilson. I don't think it really matters what it is, but we could call it a suffix. It's working like a suffix, but it's not a true suffix because less is also a real word. It's a full word, right? A true suffix is not really a word. Like when we use the suffix ly or ate, that doesn't mean like food ate. Or ion, right? Education, passion. When you add that at the end, you create a different kind of meaning for the word, different part of speech. But on their own, those are not words, right? Those are not words. This is when it's used as a past tense of ate, but that's a very different meaning. That's not a word, except the chemical ions, the particles of molecules. So it works like a suffix. It changes the meaning of the word. But then so do things like backpack, right? This is now a new word, but it's made of two words, back and pack. So homeless, you know, it kind of creates a new meaning, more the way noun plus noun structure that works. So I would hesitate to call it a suffix. It's not a true suffix. Acts like a suffix. It's a great insight though. How's our time? We're almost out of time. So guys, I want to move to our next segment, which is based on a long-form series that I planned to make and will at some point. But to close the show, I want to shift from talking about language that you are learning and confused with. I want to focus on a new topic. In this segment, we will take a look at mistakes that native speakers make, because I think it's important to understand that not all native speakers speak perfect English. Sometimes I don't even speak perfect English, especially on the live show, where sometimes I'm going too fast and make some errors. But if a native speaker has an error that's fossilized in their use, that they use persistently, that they always use that error, and you're around that person, you might learn a bad habit. So in this segment, we're going to investigate that. So stay tuned for the next few minutes. Hang on, we'll be right back.
I've heard English murdered 1,000 ways in this town. Idioms butchered beyond recognition. Slang screwed up. Expressions mangled. Join me as we report these true tales of English gone wrong. It's English Confidential.
Okay, guys. I want to look at a very common mistake that I hear all the time. And I have to admit, this is mostly a mistake. This is a mistake you mostly hear Americans make. Some Canadians I've heard use this mistake, but Americans that I've met often do this. I hear this on TV. I hear it in movies. I hear it on sports broadcasts. I hear this grammar error all the time. And I don't want it to affect you because it is inaccurate. Okay, what is it? Well, look at these examples. She speaks passionate. Don't take it personal. He played excellent. He drives aggressive. The dog barked loud. She sang beautiful. The cat ate slow. The dog, or the boy, walked careful. Can you see the error? This is a very common mistake, and what's happening here is this. We have a subject, then we have a verb, and then we have a word like passionate, personal, excellent, aggressive, loud, beautiful, slow, careful. What kind of words are those? Are they verbs? No. Are they nouns? No. These words are adjectives. What do adjectives do, guys? Well, we know adjectives modify nouns. Usually adjectives are right in front of nouns, like she is a nice lady, right? Lady is the noun, nice is the adjective. Adjective modifies the noun that comes next. Do we have that structure here? No, we have an adjective and then no noun. So what's happening here? Well, what's happening here is that the speakers, the people that make this structure, are using adjectives to tell us information about the verb. Passionate is supposed to describe speak. Personal is supposed to describe the way someone takes it or understands it. Excellent is trying to describe the way someone played a sport. Aggressive is trying to describe the way someone drives. So this person, when they say this, they're using an adjective to modify a verb. That's not cool. That's not good English. That's not accurate English. It certainly isn't precise. It's strange. And it's a problem. Why? Because we have adverbs and we have adjectives that do different things. And sometimes the position tells us what they're doing, expresses a specific meaning. Sometimes the structure of the word, passionate, is the adjective form. And that expresses a certain meaning, right? What's the adverb form? Passionately. That expresses a different meaning, okay? So this is the wrong word form for this structure, okay? Now, you can use an adjective in that position if you have a be verb, right? You can have subject, be verb plus adjective, like he is nice. She is tall. Those are adjectives, and that's a be verb. None of these verbs are be verbs. These are all actions. Speak, take, play, drive, bark, sang, ate, walked. These are action verbs. These are not the same as a be verb. So whoever says these kind of sentences may not understand this structure, right? So what's the correct way? Well, the correct way is to have an adverb form on this side of the action verb. Okay? It should be subject, action verb, adverb. And I have an alternative graphic we can use to see how it should look. Okay, now it's a bit messy. Actually, let me get rid of the graphic logo. Okay. She speaks passionately. Don't take it personally. He played excellently. He drives aggressively. The dog barked loudly. She sang beautifully. The cat ate slowly. The boy walked carefully. Okay? That's how this should be. We have subjects, we have action verbs, and finally we have adverb form. Okay? Subject, action verb plus adverb, not adjectives. Okay? So that's a little grammar crime that I see a lot. And I see native speakers making this mistake. Native speakers. I see them on TV. I see it in the movies. I see this everywhere. Right? And it's a problem because if you just use words however you like, then we're not distinguishing different meanings. And we want different meanings. Why? Life, reality, it's full of different meanings. Describing how an action is different than describing how a noun is. Right? Describe that pen. Well, it's long, it's red. That describes its appearance. Doesn't describe what it's doing. Doesn't describe its actions. Right? So we need adverbs to do one job, a distinct meaning job. We need adjectives to do another distinct meaning job. Each one expresses a different idea, a different meaning. So when people tell me, oh, I don't need to learn grammar, I have a problem with that because grammar gives us these structures. Why? To pass a test? No. To follow the rules and be good little English learners? No. That's not the purpose of learning grammar structures. The purpose of learning grammar structures is to be able to control a variety of structures so you can express a variety of meanings. Because life requires different meanings. Right? Life doesn't require that you pass tests. Life doesn't even require that you follow rules. Life requires that you can express and describe life in different ways with different meanings. That's the purpose of language, guys. Not to follow rules, not even to pass tests. The purpose of language is to communicate with each other so that we can express and describe and share our view of real life, what's happening around us. And we need different grammar structures to do that. Okay? So, English Confidential segment today, native speaker error. Please Work on this. Native speakers, I'm talking to you, not the language learners, because native speakers make this mistake. Sometimes you language learners use grammar better than a lot of native speakers, because a native speaker in an English-speaking country has all kinds of other advantages that you don't. They can get away with using grammar badly. For example, I heard this poor grammar on TV. Right? I see these structures on TV. Well, people on TV make millions of dollars. When I watch a broadcast from a sports show, they're making millions of dollars. In a movie, the movie star uses this structure. Must be right, they're making millions of dollars. I'm not judging them. I'm not saying they're bad people. But I'm saying if you use this structure, thinking it's communicating adverb meaning, it's not. Then you're not communicating well. You're not communicating the same meaning you would if you communicated it with an adverb form. So a native speaker can make errors and still have a good life, right? That's the truth. So I want you guys to be careful of this. Work on this if it's a problem for you. Ask me questions about it if you need to. That's an issue. Okay, so every week we're going to look at a new native speaker error in this segment called English Confidential. Okay, and I hope it helps you out. Because in my experience, I've seen a lot of native speakers influencing my learners in a negative way. And they get confused, right? I read something in a textbook and it explained it one way. And now this guy on TV is saying this. It's confusing. Let the guy on TV say this. Doesn't mean you should. Because when I see a guy on TV or a girl on TV, a woman on TV, a man on TV saying English like this, I lose a little respect for them. I kind of think they're maybe not so educated or maybe just highly educated but kind of stupid. It's possible. Language communicates specific meanings. So that's why that's a problem. Guys, we're almost out of time. In fact, I think we are over time, aren't we? So I'm going to take away the graphic and get ready to say good night to you all. It's been great to stream live again with you. I've missed you all. A lot of regular viewers here, and I thank you. I thank you for joining every week. It's so great to see you again. We'll be back next Friday and all Fridays after that, 5 p.m. By the way, this new time, 5 p.m. Pacific time, is it good for you? Is it better for you? I know it's earlier in Asia. It's earlier in South America, but is it a convenient time? And Chris, over in Europe, is it a convenient time for you? This is important to me. I don't choose the time based on my convenience. I choose it to reach as many people at a most convenient time as possible. So let me know what you think of the new time slot. And if I have to change it in the future, I will. Okay, Chris says it's perfect. Thank you, Chris. That's good to know. Well then, guys. Wilson says it's great. Perfect. I'm glad to hear it. Wilson, thank you. I'll thank you again, guys. Thank you for joining Hardboiled English from Vancouver, Canada. I am Teacher Paul, your host and humble language detective. And I am thrilled that you joined us. We just learned that Mutana is in Iraq. Welcome. So great to have you with us from Iraq. And Chris, my friend, poor Chris, 2 a.m. in Belgium. Okay, so hopefully it's better than it used to be, because it used to be, I think, 4 or 5 a.m. for you. So I'll assume that this works better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the show. I'll see you next week on Friday for another episode of Hardboiled English. I think I have a guest lined up. We'll find out then. Okay, until then, guys, I want you all to stay healthy, keep learning English, keep taking notes about your English mysteries. And until I see you again, take care, stay safe, and stay cool.